EJ20, no. Alrighty then. Nothing but oil. The gearbox has oil. And it has a filter. So before I can get this going, I've got to flush out the fuel system and buy a new battery. So it's not starting today, but we're just going to talk about all the other bits and pieces of the conversion so far. Now, the conversion so far, it's got the cross member out of an 83 sports wagon that had power steering. The Liberty's power steering rack bolted straight in. I had to just make the hole a little bit bigger for the power steering lines to come through because it's a different unit. But the rack bolted in. The cross member just had to have the holes for the engine mounts elongated a little bit so that the engine then just dropped straight in. I just had to make some little aluminium wedges because that's what you've got to do, because the engine mounts on this engine are slightly different angle than the ones on the Brumby engine. Now, the conversion of the bodywork was started by chopping off the Brumby radiator support that came through about here and worked out where the radiator had to sit in comparison to the engine. So all the factory lines, everything, it's all in exactly the same position. I then worked out where the radiator support panel was going to go and then put the Liberty one on, and that worked out to having the radiator in the right spot. So then I moved on to the guard. The bottom half was the Brumby guard. Now, it came down here and bolted onto the lower half of the radiator support that I didn't cut off. So the guard was mounted up all the way around pretty much. And then I got the Liberty guard, cut it off just above the body line from the Liberty, because from there down the Liberty had a kink in it. And then that top piece fitted straight over the top of the Brumby guard. I did cut the Brumby guard out later though. I got the radiator support in first, so then I could put the headlight in and then work out where this guard goes in this direction. Once I got all that lined up, then I could cut the top of the Brumby guard off and then start welding. So that line, that's Brumby, that's Liberty, and then over the top here I've still got the Brumby inner flange to bolt to the actual chassis rail there. So after I got the guards done, I got the bonnet and I cut the bracing out from underneath, about 200 mils, marked the centre of the bonnet from the sides and then cut straight down the middle. And then I lined up each half with the guard, tack welded it on both sides, and then the skin overlapped, and then I just run the cutter straight up the middle and tacked it back together. And then after I had it tacked, then I put the bracing back through under the front and back to make it solid, and then welded the whole lot. I think it was about 80 mils that ended up coming out of it. I'm considering chopping the back section off this and grafting a Brumby back section on so it lines up with this panel. I think that'll just finish it off nicely. Alrighty then. So, standard cross member for this model, but it was a power steering rack. So the Liberty power steering rack bolted straight in. The inner tie rods, I had them machined with a thread further up, so then the Brumby rack ends would just bolt straight on. So that's how I shortened them. The lower control arm, all I had to do was enlarge the hole from a 10mm to a 12mm where it goes through the cross member, and at the back I made new rear mounts that have a big steel block, and then a non-ethane bushing goes through that. Then I've got a custom cross member for holding up the gearbox, and well, everything has been built to keep everything above the height of the bottom of the chassis rails so I can go as low as possible. Anyway, that's about all I can show you under here at the moment, so we're going to go and get all the spare parts out so I can get this build started. Shed Coggy! Alright, well this is the start of the spare parts. This is like all the non-mechanical parts, so all the interior pieces, buckets of bolts, yeah, lots of bits and pieces. So, well, in here I've got the steering wheel and column out of the Liberty. I've got the dash cluster, and well, I was grafting two dashboards together. One thing I did do was, when this was a bare shell, I stripped the entire wiring loom out of both cars and put the Liberty one into here. So every sensor on the engine, every wire to the tail lights, everything is in here. So the entire system was plug and play, so the Liberty dashboard and everything fitted, plugged in, not a problem. Except for actually the airbag light came on, because, well, I deleted the airbag computer. Yeah, so what I did there was I pulled the globe out of the back of the cluster and the airbag light stopped turning on. Apart from that, everything seems happy. So now we're going to go to the shipping container and get all the rest of the spare parts, all the hubs, suspension, everything else, and bring it in the shed quarters because, well, time is running out on this build. Alpine. Got to make something that works for the front now. Because I've replaced the lower control arm with the one off the Liberty, because I want these hubs with these brakes and the 5-stud conversion, we've got to use this hub. Now, the problem is getting between where this hub mounts and where this strut mounts. Now, it's complicated. So what I'm thinking of doing, just to get this back on its wheels and driving, is making a bracket that clamps onto the Brumby strut, just like this bit, but then having the double bolt mounting system like on this strut. If I make the adapter, it won't be legal to use on the road, but I'll be able to drive it at the show. Or I could try and find some Mitsubishi Evo 2 or 3 strut tops, and hopefully they've got a proper bearing block in them, because the Brumby's just got a bush that rubs, where the Liberty has an actual ball bearing race in it. So that's what I need, because otherwise when you put this in, if it's just friction rubbing on there for the steering, it's going to destroy the bag. We don't want that. We want a ball bearing race to sit on the top of this piece where it's clamped in, and then that does all the steering. So hopefully the Mitsubishi top hat will work. If not, we're going to have to fabricate that funny lower mount. So I don't have that yet, so we're going to put the front suspension aside and go to look at the rear. What more could I want than a box full of Hot Wheels? Now these are special. There's only 30 pairs of them made. It was a group buy thing on a Subaru forum, and well, I'm pretty sure I bought the last set. Now what this is this can bolt straight onto the rear of the Brumby in replacement of the actual drum brake, and then all you have to do is adapt the braking backing plate that the caliper mounts to, and then you've got 5-stud. So this is the same stud pattern as the Liberty front, so then I'll be able to put the same wheels on all the way around, which is important for all-wheel drive. Now, there's a little bit of modification on the backing plate. I need to make a little adapter ring and then re-drill the holes. But let's go have a quick look at a rear end, because I'm not about to drag that into the table. So this is actually a rear end out of an L series, so it doesn't have the torsion bar rear suspension setup, but these sections are identical. And I'll probably be trying to modify this to fit in the Brumby when I put airbags in the rear. So apparently this replaces this drum and goes straight onto the factory CV shaft, so I could just use the standard diff that I've got, standard drive shafts, and well, everything should just work. I've just got to replace this backing plate for the drums with the one for the disc brakes, so then it has the caliper mount on it, and should be go. Well, that's about all I've got time for in this video. It was just collecting parts and putting them all in the shed. More customization on the Brumby in the next Brumby episode. Hopefully I'll have a Cubman video out soon, which will be the final video, because I'm doing all the body work on that at the moment, and well, I want it finished. Anyway, that's it for this episode. As always, customize everything.